Well, here's how tomorrow's newspapers are covering that story. Then The Guardian reporting on that first joint strike in NHS history, with consultants and junior doctors demanding higher pay. The Daily Mail leading with news of the latest doctor strike to be called, with the headline, "How Callous Can You Get?" The Telegraph reminds us the strike will be held at the same time as the Conservative Party conference. The Times says the strike could be a danger for patients. And Liam, part of the problem is that the number of appointments and operations affected has already hit nearly 1 million since strike action in all departments. This will no doubt only exacerbate the waiting lists, which are already a problem.
Yeah, that's true. But obviously those numbers are not purely down to strike action. Obviously, there's huge backlogs from the pandemic, but there was big backlogs anyway. You know, the NHS under this government's management has been failing on any kind of targets for a long time. And that is due to mismanagement, in my opinion, to underfunding. We look at the lack of the government's sort of ability or willingness to sit down with doctors. And that's what the doctors are saying there. They're saying that Steve Barclay, Rishi Sunak, they won't even talk to them anymore. So what is the government's plan here? Is it just to let this keep happening? There needs to be some political will. There needs to be some statecraft, some ability to negotiate, because we absolutely need these doctors. Whatever you think about it, whatever side people come down on, we are completely and utterly reliant on the skills and the effort and the endeavour of these people. So we absolutely need to listen to them when they say that things need to change and things need to improve. I take the line that these people are not just striking for their own pay packets, they're striking for the future of the NHS. And if they say that things are at a really low ebb, then we need to listen to them.
Can I just say, Liam asked why. I'm sliding away with it. Liam asked why Rishi won't meet with them. And it's very simple, because he told them in July and August that he offered them a 6%, he said a 6% pay rise was going to be, it was a fair, he said that was a fair and final offer. He wasn't going to come back to the negotiating table, and he said no matter how many strikes to go on now, that's the end of it. And the money that these doctors were offered, it was the equivalent of, they got offered 6% plus a cash thing of 1,250. Now, that added together adds up to a pay rise of between 8.1% and 10.3%, which is not a bad pay rise. They're not going to get 35%. The BMA knows they're not going to get 35%. This is a politically motivated strike designed to smash the Tories. That's what it's about. And, I think the Mail's headline is spot on. How callous can you get? Consultants conspiring with junior doctors to go on strike. Before, when it was one or the other, one would cover for the other. Now they are literally putting patients in danger, putting patients of dying. And they say that the waiting lists aren't their fault. Yes, they are. 120,000 patients died on waiting lists last year, and more will die this year. And, the waiting list, the tens of thousands of cancelled appointments, that is down to these strikes. They have rocketed under the strikes. So the doctors cannot keep on saying this is the government's fault. The government has offered them what appears to be a fair pay deal between 8 and 10%, not bad at all, especially for some of the highest paid people in this country, whether you're a junior doctor or you're a consultant.
Yes, you're quoting the 120,000, which was Labour Party estimates after Freedom of Information requests on trusts that estimated how many people died while waiting for treatment. The difficulty is, getting rid of the waiting list was part of Rishi Sunak's top 5 priorities, as we know. We know there's a retention issue, Liam, in parts of the health service, which is very acute. So, how does the government focus itself to solve this, as it has in other parts of the health service?
Yeah, well, it sits down and it talks to doctors. Carol can say that 6% is a decent pay rise, but if your pay has been eroded by 35% over a decade, then 6%...
That's a figure that's also been disputed, Liam, as well. The disputes have been settled because the people accepted 5 and 6%. These are some of the highest paid people in the country. Consultants can be on 250 plus a year. What? They deserve to be, he says.
They deserve to be.
Well, maybe they do deserve what they're getting, but they don't deserve 35% more than that. And where do they actually think the money's coming from? We have not recovered post-pandemic. The country has suffered because of these strikes, because the economy has suffered. And it's because of the pandemic. We want to get back to normal. We can't because of these strikes. How can the doctors say the waiting lists are not down to the strikes? Strikes have gone on for a year, and they've just voted for 6 months more.
The waiting lists were already extremely high before
They're
the strike.
not as high as they are now, Liam. Nowhere near as high as they are now.
Yeah, but they were already there because of the desperation and the mismanagement of the NHS, which is a big part of what they're highlighting. Doctors I've spoken to on picket lines are saying that their colleagues are leaving all the time. People aren't coming into the industry. It's a massive crisis of staffing in the NHS because of pay and conditions. That is what they're highlighting. The waiting list will only continue to rocket as long as the NHS is continually treated like this. And if Rishi Sunak wants to make one of his pledges at least work, then he will sit down with doctors and work out a way through this, because he's failing miserably at the moment at all of them.
Well, he's not failing. He's just said he's offered them an amount, and he said, that's it. I'm not coming back to the table. There will not be any more offers.
How's he going to make his promise of getting the waiting list down?
Well, he's not going to. But what he's saying to them is he's given them a fair offer, and that's all he's going to do, and he's not going to do anything. He couldn't have actually made it clearer. He said it in August. He couldn't have made it clearer. So for them to say they haven't been to the negotiating table, they have. And they've come up with what looks like a fair offer, especially between 8 and 10% when you're already on more than the rest of the country. It's not about, you're talking about them, Liam, like, they're going to food banks, these doctors. They're not. They're on very decent salaries.
If you're a junior doctor and you're on £14 an hour and you're making life and death decisions,
they've got to stop quoting that figure. You're on that for the first couple of months that you're on the wards. By the end of the first year, I just quoted the figure, 37 grand.
That's not true. I've literally spoken to junior doctors who are working on that now and they've been through so much already, training through medical school, which they've paid their way through. They've been placements for a long time, and then some of them are actually in charge of making life or death decisions while earning £14 an hour.
Well, that's what a doctor does,
You might think that's okay.
That's what a doctor trains for, to make life or death decisions. They know that it's not 9 to 5. They know it's hard work. Don't go into it if you want to finish work at 5 o'clock. It's not that kind of job.
Many of them feel that what they went into is not the NHS that they are now working in, and they're worried about the future of it.
You just said before, the NHS for years has been in a mess. So you can't say the NHS they went into 17 years ago.
But funnily enough, when you are continually mismanage something, it gets worse and worse, as it has done over the last 13 years.
Yeah, it's not all about mismanagement. It's about the huge numbers of procedures that need to be done after COVID and the massive backlog, and that kind of wears people down, I suppose, is part of the point, isn't it? Anyway, lots more still to come in the programme. More stories from